Today, we're talking with Jeff Borello, the CEO of Andromeda Technology, about how to keep your tech company growing from a TRS-80 computer to a team of nearly 50. Welcome to Beyond SaaS, Jeff. Before we jump in, have you got a golden nugget for us today?
Oh man, we're starting right in with the tough ones. Something I've been using for a couple of years. I've always been trying to find the right tool to manage my ever-flowing inbox, right? I've had the same email address for 25 years or whatever it is. So I've been using a tool called SaneBox, so SANEBOX, SaneBox. It does some AI on kind of filtering out messages you've never seen before into kind of called Sane Later. It filters out news into a folder, so everything kind of gets in. It really keeps just things that it thinks are pertinent in my inbox. And then what I've recently introduced is I have my given my executive assistant access to those two folders, and she will kind of go through and because 95% of his stuff I don't want to see, and she goes through that, filters it out, and instead of having to go through 100 messages at night, I just go through a couple in those two boxes. So that's been a really game-changing tool for me for sure.
Okay, so I definitely learned something that I'm going to go look up because I need that badly. So amazing. My golden nugget today, and it's funny that you have the branded microphone that we were talking about, is microphones. My wife is a musician. She's been preaching at me for a long time to get a good one. I finally got the Shure microphone, and I'm like, wow, life is definitely better. So this is the USB version. So microphones, good microphones. Okay, before we jump in, a little bit about Jeff. Jeff has been leading Andromeda Technology since 1994, so that's over 30 years, and has grown from 3 co-founders to a 50-person team or so. He started apparently on a gifted Radio Shack computer, and I think I started on one of those too, and learned to program and type, and then ultimately lead Andromeda, which helps manufacturing businesses with managed IT and co-managed IT services. Can you give us a high-level view of what you see your role at Andromeda these days?
Yeah, so it's obviously changed a lot over the 30 years, but really at this point, I have a very solid team with me. So I spend most of my time either leading our marketing efforts, which is a never-ending, always changing task, and then either spending some time in the financials, always chasing numbers around. And then third area is just high-level strategy and really figuring out what's next and how we're going to implement our 3-year plan. So one of those 3 areas is where I spend most of my day.
I love it. I got to ask, after 30 years, like what still motivates you? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get motivated every day. I'm ready to go. As soon as my eyes pop open, the brain starts going and I'm ready to go. Part of it is our company's core mission, really our purpose is helping people succeed. And that means our team, our customers, our partners, whoever it might be. So really that's always been my purpose is just really what can I do to help someone have a good day to day? Obviously our customers are a big part of that, but our team's an even bigger part. So, how do we either help people succeed in their role here, or maybe this isn't their final destination and they want to go on and do something else. So we're here to help them with that. So it's really all about helping people.
I love that. That's huge. So you've been in mid-stage tech for quite a while. What are the challenges that you see, like funding issues or growth plateaus, or you moved long ago out of the startup phase, but there's always changes and challenges. What are some of the big challenges you see regularly?
One of our biggest over the years has just been, getting the right qualified leads in the door. We can really do a lot to help clients, but it's getting the word out there. There's a lot of managed service providers out there, so it's a very noisy environment, and trying to explain our messaging, our differentiation from others, right? Because it's really hard for someone that doesn't understand what we do. If they're looking at 3, 5, sometimes even more, everything starts to look the same after a little while. So I think just being able to let people understand that, and a lot of people are stuck with a maybe mediocre or even bad IT provider, and they're not happy with it. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I don't think people understand that because they just think, well, changing is going to be too hard, so we're going to stay here. So I think getting the word out to people that there is a better way. You don't have to suffer through bad IT. That's really a big challenge, is just being able to get that messaging out there and have people understand it.
And so what have you done that's been successful in solving that challenge?
I'll let you know as soon as we figure it out.
You're still here. I know you're doing it.
It's just always, especially in marketing, it's what worked yesterday does not work today and it won't work tomorrow, right? So it's just always, you got to be willing to try new things. You got to be willing to understand when something stops working, that it's not always about just doubling down and doing more. So it's just a constant testing, finding what works, and then double down on it while it does work, because it eventually will stop.
In terms of your messaging, are there specific areas that lately you've been finding have been more successful than others?
Yeah, about two or so years ago, we made a pretty big change here to focus almost primarily on manufacturing. We still have clients across the board, medical, legal, financial, all those, but we really are targeting our messaging and our efforts to a single industry of manufacturing, learning about it, understanding their needs. Some of the needs across the industries are the same, but there are pieces of it, right? Manufacturers that rely heavily on their ERP or their network are areas that we can really help. And so we've really been learning that industry and finding the areas where we can help. And that's really helped our messaging because we can really hone it into what they need and not trying to be everything to everybody.
I love that. And that's been the transformation of my company. So we've been here, we're a marketing agency, and we've been doing this for 22 years. And we kind of fell into a couple different niches. And one was nonprofits, which I really love, but are hard to kind of run a business from. And the other is tech companies. And we weren't clear about that. And it's funny, right? As the marketing company, we're not clear on our own marketing.
Cobbler's kid has no shoes.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Till about a year ago. And it's been absolutely transformative.
Yeah, we were lucky enough, or I was lucky enough, I guess. I was at a conference and I got seated next to a gentleman named Jack Stack, who was kind of a legend in the manufacturing industry. And I was seated right next to him, and we were talking about the resurgence of manufacturing coming back to the States and the money that was going to get put behind it. And I'd always wanted to be kind of more of a single niche company, and it just never quite happened. So that desire and that meeting, kind of the timing was very fortuitous, and said, all right, let's give this a try and really hone in on it. And it's been a fun ride for the last couple of years.
I love that. So you said becoming niche focused is one thing. How specifically are you getting your word out now that you have a single focus?
It's a constant battle because, you'll go a couple months where it seems like there's not enough leads coming in that niche, and everybody gets a little nervous, and we start going, well, maybe we're too narrow. But it's a marathon, not a sprint. So we really are, our website's very targeted towards that. Our LinkedIn posts, like I've gone through a cleaning in my LinkedIn connections, and I've really honed them in down to, so all my first level connections are in manufacturing. So it's a long play. There's a lot of pieces to it, recreating a lot of our content to be focused around manufacturing, and then just learning the industry, right?
Absolutely. And if you could say one or two things that are blocking you from growth, what would you say those are?
The lead gen is definitely part of it. And we've never been a company that's looking to grow 20, 30% a year. In our space, it just breaks too many systems. We'll only onboard generally one or two clients a month, and even two gets to be a little hairy. So it's always been about slow and steady growth for us. So even across our 30 years, the years where we've had more than that, like where we get above 20%, you lose some customers, you lose focus a little bit, and it just gets hard. So we've really been trying to keep it down in almost double digits, low double digits. But I think it's just every client's different. So it's certainly a challenge to every client you bring on. You got to figure out, and every client generally that comes to us, they're coming from a bad situation, which means they've probably been neglected by their prior. So where they were like, they've gone a year or two with people like, I'll just suffer through these problems. Well, then they get a technology provider like us where we will help them. And all of a sudden the floodgates open and they're like, whoa, we're going to give you these 30 things that we've been holding on to. So that makes the first 3 months a little bit challenging. And that's one of the things that keeps the growth where we need to keep it kind of slow and steady.
I feel like in this business, we have the same thing too. I can have so many different systems, but then someone comes and one person needs a full website and one person's happy with their brand. One person needs an email campaign, another one needs videos, and they all have their own little challenges each to figure out on the startup phase of things.
Yeah, there's some similarities for sure.
In terms of what you're doing, are you doing all the normal, email campaigns and social media and trade shows and all the fun things like that?
Yeah, certainly some email. So we do some of it in-house. We do some of it with an outside agency. A lot of LinkedIn, definitely got some paid ads running, which has always been a challenge for us for whatever reason. We don't do a lot of events. We do some smaller kind of local regional type things, but not big. We just don't quite have the staff for that. Although I do think events is a big potential area for us to get into. It's just we can't quite figure out how to do it with the staff we have, and there's a lot of work when you any of those events.
Yeah, I see a mix. I see some clients who get most of their leads from the events, and then I see some who have found an enormous waste of money. So I think it depends on how you focus and how you prep and what you're able to do.
Yeah, well, and part of it too, that's the funny thing about marketing, right? Is there's no one thing, right? So you got to be doing 20 things. But that makes it really challenging. And then it's to try to figure out what's working. And especially one of the things we've noticed is it's a lot harder these days to figure out where someone came from, right? It used to be, you'd say, what'd you do? And it was, way back in the day, well, we opened the yellow pages. That was right. That was easy to track. Now, even now, it's like, well, I don't know. I found you on the internet, but did you find us directly? Did you find us through an aggregator? Did you go to an ad? It's sometimes it's, the third or fourth look and they got an email, and it's really getting hard to try to tell where where to put your money because you can't tell where the leads are coming from.
We have another company and we do Photoshop tutorials. And we looked at a system that I think it was $2,500 a month that was supposed to track where people ultimately came from. You do an ad and you see them 3 or 4 times later and then they make their way back around. And even that wasn't giving us clear data on where the people were coming from. And that's as sophisticated as it's supposed to be.
Yeah, well, and of course, the Googles of the world keep making it a little harder. I mean, the privacy gets to be, and then you're not getting the good data you were, and it's definitely become a lot harder over the years for sure.
100%. Do you have any fun marketing hacks or things where you've seen a little, yeah, and don't reveal all your trade secrets, but anything where you've seen something work really well?
I'll be honest, it's a lot of just little. There's no silver bullet for marketing, I don't think. I think I'd like to give you a better answer to that, Jason, but there's been, we've had a lot of luck with aggregators. They seem to do a very good job of getting top of list on SEO. So we do get a lot of our leads through various aggregators, but some people won't touch those either, right? So and that same thing. Some people won't touch an ad. Some people, it's the first place they go. So I think it's really challenging to come up with that silver bullet. I'd like to give you a better answer to that. I just don't have one.
Sure. And when you're looking for partners for growth, what is it that you're really looking for out there? How do you choose the people that help you, not just growth, any area of what you're doing, but how do you find good partners these days?
Some word of mouth. We're very loyal just with everybody, with our team, with our clients, and with our vendor partners. So we don't change partners very often. There's got to be generally a reason to drive us somewhere. So, but again, we do our research. We're in a couple peer groups. So I'm in a peer group for CEOs. My COO's in a peer group for COOs. So we get a lot of good feedback from our peer group partners on what they're using. And a lot of times somebody's already been down the road and they've already vetted someone. So we'll take a lot of direction from that for sure. And then we just do our due diligence, and, security is a very big deal here to us. So that's one of the things, is understanding the vendor's security stance and where they stand, and to be able to, we'll certainly rule somebody out if we don't believe they have a good security posture.
Yeah, 100%. Wow. Yeah, I was in EO Entrepreneurs Organization for 17 years, and that was a wonderful peer group. So I love that.
Yeah. I know a few people are Vistage. Vistage is another great organization, I think, where you can get a lot of good insights from other peers. So.
Is there one that you recommend specifically that you like?
The one we're in is really specific to the IT industry. So it's Evolve, that's formerly HTG, and it's a ConnectWise owned company. So we spend a lot of time there. I know some people in there, they're in Vistage. I think Vistage is a pretty good group. And I know people that love EO too, right? So I think really some of it's just, I don't think there's any bad ones. It's just, it takes time, it takes extra money, and some people don't like that. But there's a lot of value to be gained by hanging out with peers, I think, and getting an outside perspective from someone that isn't inside your company.
100%. We recently joined an organization of agencies, and in my whole career, I'd met 3 or 4 other agency owners, and now there's 750, and it's like mind blowing for me.
Yeah. Well, and again, someone out there's already done it, right? And especially like ours, we're in smaller groups. So there's 10 companies or something, and they're all non-competing, right? It's non-geographical competing, and they do a really good job of making sure there's no overlap, and everybody's there. They're very open. They're willing to share, and it's a really good group. So we really enjoy that a lot.
So what might you tell some other CEOs who are at an earlier phase than you are? Maybe they're just still in that startup phase or they're growing their company. What advice would you have for them?
You got to be in it for the long haul, right? There's no shortcut. There's no magic bullet. It's hard, right? One of our core values in the company is grit. Got to be willing to put the time in. I'm sure it's a great book, but the 4-hour work week is, yeah, no, that's not a thing. It's the 16-hour days, right? And it's just a grind, and you got to be willing to hunker down, and there's going to be some really tough days and tough weeks and tough months and tough years, and you got to be willing to put in the time and the effort, and it's hard. So be prepared. Again, I think part of it is, in the world now, there's social media, but you get some money and you go do your thing, and in a couple of years you have the next Facebook. Yeah, no, those are unicorns. They're once in a million, and it's not going to be you. So don't expect it.
So when things get really hard, right, you talk about grit. What is it that keeps you moving forward?
It's the only option. There is no other option. And again, I think it goes back to the why, right? If I give up or I fail, there's 50 people here that all are in the same boat, right? And our customers. So it's really about, if you're going to be in it, you got to understand the why, and you got to be, you got to get there every day. And when it's tough, it's tough. And just part of that is knowing you're going to have some tough times. So don't be surprised by it. You just got to fight through it. Tomorrow's another day. Sometimes you got to walk away and come back the next day and fight, live to fight another day.
Yeah, 100%. What do you see as trends coming up in tech and tech marketing? What do you see? Like the world is in massive flux right now. Any predictions on this kind of economy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously everybody's talking about AI now, and I think there's a lot of hype around the AI, especially in the tech world. But I do think marketing, email creation is the first place where it's really making a big impact. So I do think it's a lot easier to create content than it was. I did see an article the other day, though, how now the new worry is that AI is going to make people creatively lazy.
Hmm.
And I do think there is a fear of that, right? Again, it seems like that silver bullet. So I just have it crank it out. I won't read it. I'll just shoot it out. Well, it's not quite all that. And if you have any doubts about that, ask AI to try to create some graphics that have words in them, right? It cannot create graphics that have, it just can't spell. At least on graphics,
Just
it
the
can't.
basics. Yeah.
I know. So I think, again, it's a great tool. But again, to learn how to use it, it's not just you drop on there. If you really want to get the most out of it, you have to spend the time to learn it, learn how to use it, learn how to ask it the right questions. But I do think AI is going to be a big deal. But I also think then the more people that are using AI, is it now open the opportunity for people who aren't to go back to a more personalized one-on-one type of messaging. There will be now areas, I think, where people can differentiate themselves because they're not using AI or they're using it properly. I mean, not just look like one of the people just putting the cookie cutter content out there. So I think it's again, all these things go in cycles and it just makes new opportunities for different people to do different things.
My wife is in theater, and theater was the big thing, right, for
Yeah.
hundreds of years. And then TV and movies came along, and not in that order, and theater kind of died out. And I was telling her, I think theater's in for a resurgence because people are going to actually want to see real things and know that it's real and know that it's in front of them as opposed to some AI made up avatar acting out whatever show you're watching, right?
Well, yeah, and especially now, I mean, there's so much, you almost can't believe anything you see, whether it's video, audio, in writing, you just don't know. So I really do fear that at some point, unless somebody's standing in front of you, you can touch them. I'm getting pretty skeptical, right? And especially again, you go back to security for us, and it's just like you can't. It's just too hard to tell, and it's getting better and better every day. I do think you're exactly right. I think you'll see a resurgence around things that are in person and live.
I do not envy you at all on the security side of things because it used to be the bank would call you and that was your phone number and, they could ask you. And now there's so many ways to hack and spoof almost anybody, right? You can easily spoof my voice. You could pretty soon spoof me in a video, right? It's going to be really challenging for you guys to
Yeah, there's
authenticate
no
who's,
doubt
who's
that the security implications are just huge. And it is, you just really got to be way more careful than you ever have been, for sure.
So will AI affect you, A, your industry and how managed IT services work? And then B, are you using that to supercharge your marketing at all?
But one of the things I say a lot is I think the AI hype is out in front of the reality a little bit. Our industry is definitely talking about it, but that's just it. Matter of fact, my CEO just came back from his peer group and everyone said, yeah, everyone's talking about it. No one's actually using it. And some people are doing things where they think they're using it, but they're not. It's really just other tools or automations. I think eventually it will get there, right? I think you'll see it assisting in very low level. Again, is it going to put technicians out of a job? Nah, I don't think so. Will it take some low level, like repetitive tasks that the techs don't like doing anyway? Yeah, I think we'll get there. 5 years, maybe. I mean, it's moving pretty quick, right? So, and everybody's putting a lot of time and money into it. So I think we'll definitely see it start having some impact. It's just a question of when. Matter of fact, one of the things we're doing here is putting a steering committee together to start looking at it and say, okay, what do we need to be thinking about, 2-3 years out and not, it's not going to be a couple months out. Marketing wise, definitely we've been generating some content. I spend a lot of time asking it questions, right? One of the things I did the other day was I built a system out to basically give me some competitive research. Like every month, tell me what my competitors are doing. We don't pay a lot of attention to competitors, but part of that is if the AI can help and make it easier, well, maybe we'll keep an eye on it. So I think there's a lot of blue ocean out there to try new things, and not all of it's going to work. Certainly content creation, we've been certainly putting that to use, no doubt.
I love that. I got one of these ads the other day, and I know it doesn't work the way they said it does, but it basically said, put in your competitors' email addresses and we'll tell you everything they're doing in their marketing world. And I'm like, well, I'm sure it's not that simple, but it's actually an interesting idea
Yeah.
to be able to kind of lift and see what they're actually doing and making happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else you want to tell me about Andromeda and what you guys are doing?
Our big messaging these days is for people out there that have their IT just isn't what they want it. And we do both. We do full service where somebody doesn't have an IT group, but there's a lot of manufacturers that have some either software specialists or some level of IT, but they're buried, they're swamped, they have too much to do, and they need help. So we're certainly there to help them. We're not there to take their job. But I think the biggest thing is if you're not happy with your provider, we've made switching, we've been doing this 30 years, right? So we've been doing this for a long time. We take about 95% of the work off of switching providers. It's not as bad as you think it's going to be. One of the common things we hear after we switch someone is they go, I can't believe I waited this long to do this. It's so much better. So there are, whether it's us or somebody else, there are better answers out there, and you don't have to suffer with a provider that you don't like. If they're not communicating with you, a lot of turnover in their staff, they're just not responsive. It doesn't have to be that way. So, if you're unhappy, take the time, make some inquiries. I'm always available to talk to someone, even if you're not interested in us, but you just want some input, somebody to bounce things off of. I am more than available to talk to people.
That's great. And how can they find you?
So LinkedIn is a great place. Jeff Borello, Borello. Pretty easy to find at Andromeda Technology. The website is pretty long. It's andromeda-tech-solutions.com. Send me an email. jborello@wenetwork.com. WENETWORK.com. Happy to help.
Jeff, thank you so much for being on Beyond SaaS. For the viewers out there, if you're a leader in mid-stage tech looking to grow, please give us any feedback you've got, questions, comments, and of course, the likes and subscribes help a bunch. And until next time, this is Beyond SaaS.
Thanks, Jason.